I was brought up in the church. I accepted Christ at a very, very young age of like 12 years old, 11, 12 years old, at a spin-off of a Billy Graham crusade that was at Martinsburg High School. Actually, yeah, it was, it was a spin-off of Billy Graham. So I accepted Christ at 12. By 15 years old, I decided that I started playing sports and running around with a bad bunch of guys that were jocks like I was trying to be. So I kind of veered away from the church, started partying, drinking, going to their dads, drank. My parents didn't drink. My parents didn't do any of that stuff. So I was like never home. So started drinking, smoking weed and stuff, like 15, 16 years old. Met a girl in high school, and we got married in 1977. 1978. I graduated in 77. Got married in 1978 by the grace of God, and I'm still married to that wonderful woman through everything I put her through. I had back surgery in 1982 and was put on Percocet, and being a drug addict that I was, that didn't go well with me. I really like those pills and what they did for me. To move on, just to make this part of it brief, because I don't want to really dwell on all this, but I stayed on the opiates from 1982 to 1992. And if anybody knows anything about opioids, it has a progression. Okay, so I was being given by a doctor in Martinsburg. I don't think he's a doctor anymore, by the name of Lieberman. I'm sure you know who he was, or is. I don't know if I know he's not still around Martinsburg. But anyway, he was giving me like 180 Oxycontins a month and like 90 methadone pills a month. Well, I would run out of those pills in about 2 weeks. So finally started finding other stuff to take. Heroin was one of those things. 1992, I overdosed. By this time, I had 2 children. It was on December 22nd. I'll never forget the day. I remember my wife telling me I'm taking Carly, which was my youngest daughter. She said, we're going shopping. She said, I'm going to take Carly down to your mom and dad's, and I'm going to go shopping with the girls. I said, okay. I remember walking in the bathroom. I remember doing a shot of dope. And I can remember walking out of my bathroom, out to my wood stove, and it was a dingy day just like this, a lot darker than what it was today, out today. It was towards the evening hours. And I can remember opening up my wood stove, and I can just remember I felt so the presence of doom in my life. As I said, I was a Christian. I was living this way. I was very, very, very convicted. So I knew that I was saved through all this using and drinking and partying. But I can remember that day throwing that syringe in the fireplace, and I just felt a sense of just doom in my life. It was just I can't explain it. I remember shutting my stove doors, and the next thing I remember, I woke up on my back, looking up at my wife, crying her eyes out, holding my 2-year-old daughter, and paramedics all around me. And the first thought that I had was, this has got to stop. So I made a commitment to stop. My work found out about the overdose. I worked for Potomac Edison for 39 years, the power plant in Waynesford, Maryland. Back then, we were like just one big happy family. They were very enabling. If you got called for drunken driving or whatever, if you got arrested for anything, the guy that ran the place, he would show up in court and get you out of any kind of trouble that you were ever in. So they condoned the behavior that we were in. But I had to go to a year-long rehab. So I picked Washington County Hospital as outpatient rehab. We had to go to so many meetings, AA meetings, NA meetings, whatever it was. And by all means, folks, I'm not here putting down NA or AA. Those organizations help people. They've helped maybe hundreds of thousands of people. So in no way, shape, or form am I here putting down any of that. But anyway, I went through that drug rehab. Stayed clean for quite some time. Went through the 12 steps. Went to, did the 90 and 90, did all that. Stayed clean for quite some time. But I can always remember there was something in the back of my mind, because those programs were preaching to me at that time that once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Once a junkie, always a junkie. Once a drug addict, always a drug addict. And for some reason, I knew better in my heart, but that always stuck in my mind. So as time went on I stopped using drugs in 1992. I had a very rough thing happen to me later on. Maybe 2 or 3 years later, I think it was. My brother died. I felt very, very guilty about that, because my brother was a very, very wonderful person. He was not like me. He was not selfish. He wasn't a drug addict. He didn't drink. He didn't smoke. He didn't run around. He didn't, he just had his own thing. People loved him. And I was very, very mad at God, because I'm like, God, why did you take my brother? Why wouldn't you take me? I'm the sicko here. Selfish, lying, just out in the world, my brother was none of that. Well, he took my brother from me. My brother was like 42 years old, and it kind of devastated me. I became very angry at God. Quit going to church. Just kind of was very angry. And with that anger, and what was in the back of my mind was, I never did forget what it felt, what the opiates made me feel like. And I knew that maybe I could get rid of some of this anger. So there were some events that led up to me start using again. So, and I can tell you, within 8 to 10 months, I was like 100 times worse than what I was at the end of my addiction there in 1992. I was using, I was lying, I was taking things from our farm and hawking it, just, the typical drug addict behavior. And finally, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I was so ashamed of myself, and I knew where I needed to be, and I wasn't there. My wife was going to church. My kids were going to church. Here I was, just, absolutely miserable. So finally, I just said, Lord, I've had enough. I'm going to surrender, and I'm going to